This is a study that was done and guided by Dr. Edwards, refined by him as well as co-authors. So I just want to express my gratitude of his leadership and of his guidance. And he really helped me out with this. This was a study that was done from a virtual internship that I was a part of during my graduate master's program. And it was, basically, I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous. We started with a lot of surveys. I had a lot of data to work with, and I had to basically pick and choose what would inform the best, what would inform the survey responses and how I could basically conceptualize a pedagogical shift in agricultural information and with the Ugandan secondary school teachers. Field of Hope is the faith-based organization that designed an agricultural curriculum for students that were in secondary school level. So from about the ages of 11 to 15, that were the center of the study. The teachers themselves were involved in a teacher training workshop, also designed by Field of Hope. So the teacher training workshop was created to work in tandem with the agricultural educational curriculum. And Field of Hope wanted to understand why there was a disinterest by the students in agriculture, since agriculture is one of the main income generating industries in Uganda. There's 80% of arable land, a lot of fertility, a lot of accessible land that is not being utilized at its best potential because there's just a declining number of young people who are, willing to get to the field of agriculture. There are a lot of negative stigmas associated with agriculture and manual labor in itself. And so we wanted to revitalize, we wanted to revitalize the interest and agricultural productivity with such a huge working population. So Field of Hope and AgEd, which is a curriculum design company, they collaborated and they formulated an agricultural educational curriculum that was released in segments from 2019 up until now. There's for Senior 1, Senior 2, Senior 3. These are the levels of the secondary school class levels as well. So the purpose of the study was to explore the perceptions of the Ugandan secondary school educators using these surveys that they were given pre and post training. And it was a project-based methodology that was incorporated into the curriculum. And this is a result of a pedagogical shift between putting agricultural theory into practice to revitalize the interest. So project-based learning, sometimes interchangeable with problem-based learning that utilizes real-life solutions or problems to explore and involve the students rather than students just sitting and getting the concepts but not really being able to put them into practice. So this is just a snippet of what the teaching guide that were given to the teachers was used. So as you can see, we have a lot of different resources that were pulled into a teaching supplement for the teachers to be able to conceptualize how to teach agriculture in a way that involves the students more and that allows them to reconceptualize theory and to be able to imagine practicing with a lot of different activities. So as you can see, there are different sections that would basically would be used by the students throughout the term. So there were different sections that the students and the teachers were able to use to kind of draw the interest of the subject into the classrooms. So, for example, the interest approach, which was a systematic way to draw the interest in the beginning of the classroom lesson. And there was a lot of dialogue that's involved in the interest approach, back and forth between the teachers and the students, so that the student is not just sitting there listening and taking notes and unable to really process the information, to reconceptualize it, and to provide feedback. So the study was guided conceptually and theoretically. Rogan and Grayson's model for curriculum implementation in developing countries was employed as the conceptual framework. And this basically provides a pillar of different principles by which to assess the likelihood that the curriculum, any kind of curriculum, not agricultural, but in this case it was an agricultural curriculum, can be implemented sustainably in developing countries. So as you can see, there are 6 principles. Innovation should be just ahead of existing practice, and the implementation should be able to occur in realistic steps. The capacity to support innovation should be concurrent with efforts to enrich the profile of implementation. Outside support should be informed by the other 2 constructs, matching outside support with capacity and capacity with desired implementation. And these support can be either material, they can be whatever it is that is completely aligned to the needs of that country. So it's all circumstantial and it's all applicable. All role players need to be able to reconceptualize the intended changes in their own terms and context. But it was suggested that before that was to happen, there should be a very rigid instruction between the teacher and the students that would not allow too much reconceptualizing outside of the curriculum. Like, you have to get familiar with the curriculum first before reconceptualization can take change, can happen. And changing teaching and learning is a change of culture, not a technical matter. And there should be an alignment between the 3 constructs listed above and the primary level. Also, the Diffusions of Innovations theory by Edward Rothers was utilized as the theoretical framework. And basically, this is also a way to assess or imagine the likelihood of adopting and sustainably implementing of any idea or innovation or invention. The relative advantage is the advantage that this new innovation has over any preconceived ideas or any innovation beforehand. Is the compatibility having to do with how well it is incorporated into a culture or the society that we are discussing, the complexity or the perceived difficulty of use, or of that innovation, the observability, which is the how you can, whoever is using the innovation can see it being used elsewhere by another individual or another society. How can we observe it being used? And trialability, which is the way that we can have a free trial period of using the innovation or the curriculum. These variables impact the likelihood of the new idea or agricultural curriculum in this case being utilized or implemented sustainably. So these were the objectives that were formulated around these surveys, and the ones that are being addressed today are going to be 2 and 3, which would be to identify ways to improve field of hopes curriculum as perceived by the teachers who participated in the training workshop, and to describe their perceived value of the curriculum to their teaching practices. So there was a triangulation of this data that was having to do correlated with the type of questions that were in the surveys. So, there were questions that were developed in a Likert type scale, where they were perceiving attitudes of either confidence levels in teaching the curriculum, or and there were also open-ended qualitative questions that asked, how you feel about teaching the materials. And so I was basically, using word frequencies as well as, statistical analysis to triangulate and interpret in a more holistic manner exactly how teachers perceive the utility of the curriculum. So there are some select findings that are included here that go with the second and third objectives of the study. And the concept of a pedagogical shift, meaning incorporating practice, actual practice, and not just agricultural theory to provide the best teaching methods for students and to revitalize interest in agriculture. As you can see, the practicality, the practical components of the curriculum were they were found to be most valued by the teachers. So they liked that it was practical, that it was comprehensive, and that it was facilitating it was basically facilitating the teaching of the material, and also it was involving the students in ways that they were not used to prior. The curriculum is helpful since all the contents are well arranged, which makes it easy to understand. And they found that it was helpful because agriculture is a science and it is a practical subject. The curriculum embraces more of practical input, which can help to build self-reliant agricultural students in the future. This is another finding about the valuable aspects, and as you can see, the practical component was something that was very, very appreciated by the majority of the teachers who participated in the teacher training. And suggestions for improvement, a lot of the teachers expressed concerns with the time constraint because there was so much information that they were concerned with its ability to be able to fit in the term given by the Ugandan syllabus and the national curriculum as well. So it was perceived by myself that maybe there should be either material that is condensed or that is reduced in order to comply with the requirements of the Ugandan syllabus. The resources were also expressed to be limiting as far as materials needed to teach via Pedagogical curriculum. And because of that, it was suggested or recommended for future practice that maybe resource sharing and networking should be something that should be considered by Pedagogical. And so also, the selected findings, it showed that even teachers who did have gardens or farms, they still were lacking in the adequate materials and resources to be able to teach the curriculum. So the areas of need was that a lot of the teachers didn't really have enough of the information to teach the curriculum as optimally as they could, because there was a lack of information as far as animal sciences, crop sciences, and they were expressing needs or desires to be further, to be better equipped with that information to be able to teach their students. And since I'm running out of time, the conclusions were that there was a predominantly positive attitude regarding the curriculum and the workshop as well, and there was a desire by over half of them for continuous training. And this also supported Rogers' attributes of an innovation as such, increasing the likelihood of teachers' adoption and implementation of the curriculum. This also was building on previous studies assessing Pedagogical's curriculum as well. So yeah, maybe an advocacy campaign could be used to create awareness of the importance of agriculture. A lot of teachers expressed concerns about their school administrators and head teachers really understanding why they needed materials, why things were not conducive to teaching agriculture. And also there's, a lot more research that needs to be done as far as needs assessments for the students to analyze their own perceptions as well of the curriculum in agriculture. And there are more recommendations for future practice, but that's most of it. And I really appreciate everybody listening.
From the last slide, just leave it up there.
Okay.
So Robert, I'm going to ask the first question. One of the first things that you showed up there was the curriculum, and this is a bit tangential. You're not implementing the curriculum, but the very first one was define agriculture. And one of the things that I find in international ag settings is that in the U.S. we define agriculture differently than most other countries in the world. Agriculture, by etymology of the word, is cultivating the earth. And so many countries call, say, agriculture and animal production as two separate things.
Right.
I noticed that you had animal science in your agriculture curriculum. You think we in Field of Hope took a U.S.-centric definition of agriculture and imposed it on Uganda? Does Uganda's agriculture, Corey, help me with the name of the university. McCary University, is it agriculture and animal science, or does agriculture include animal science?
I think in a Ugandan perspective, I think that they are delineated, they are separate. And so like you were saying, reconceptualization is important. And it was also suggested in a lot of the findings, in some of the findings rather, that the topics that were presented in the curriculum may be a little bit too broad and not specific to Ugandan agriculture, and that included their need or their request for training on specifically animal sciences or crop sciences or agriculture or specific things that they felt would be geared toward actual Ugandan production.
But at the school level, they're teaching lots of animal and plant science in the context of agriculture curriculum. So it's inclusive in that sense. I mean, I understand your distinction, and I've encountered that lots of places.
Yeah, sure.
You know, the fisheries lead somewhere else, you know,
Uh-huh.
like we treat forestry different, you know.
Uh-huh.
But at the lower and upper secondary school levels, as they teach agriculture, like Stephen Kim, he would have taught some poultry science, he would have taught some basic animal science, along with, you know, agronomy and plant and all that.
Did anybody else have any questions?
I saw on one of your slides that you said teachers had to have either used the curriculum before or attended a training, if I read that correctly. Did you do anything to see if there was differences in perceptions based on how long they used the curriculum?
Just because there was a limited amount of data that I could use, I purposely, did a critical case sampling that only analyzed new teachers. But that definitely was mentioned for future research to either use those surveys and with the teachers who have had it prior to. But I feel like it would have had a different. The findings would have been different, and because of that, it should be those should definitely be assessed.
Yeah. These teachers or respondents were new. They had not
Right,
taught
yeah.
the curriculum.
So
This was their first
first
exposure to the curriculum, and filled with hopes, advice regarding this is the appropriate way to teach the curriculum.
Okay.
You see, they were introduced to the curriculum at the workshop. It was about a 4-week long intervention, if you will, and filled with hope, work them through the curriculum, and here's how we think you should teach it. Okay? But, that's one of the challenges with data and working in these kinds of settings. There were also teachers in that workshop that had previous experience with it, but we had a sorting variable that allowed us to take them out and get down to this 56, because the big number was like 93 or something, and identify people that it was their first time to have direct experience with the curriculum. But you're right, they had not yet taught it. So going back and capturing their attitudes and perceptions after they had experience teaching, what is also very necessary.
Okay, thank you.